Welcome back to Life's Journey. I'm Dr. Ralph Smith. If you remember in our previous program, we talked a lot about living life not in the rearview mirror, but living life forward. And I hope you enjoyed that show. And if you didn't, get an opportunity to see it. And I know a lot of you guys look at it on our regular schedule that we have with Papa here in Port Angeles. And of course, that's Comcast, Channel 21. And then we have Thurston Community Television, which is with basically Comcast, which is awesome. We're real happy with both Wave and Comcast, and that's on Channel 22. And they do post their schedules. So if you want to see it, you can watch it live on the television per se. And then of course our new friends at Idaho Open Media, which covers all of Southwest Idaho and Eastern Oregon, and that's on Channel 64 with Cable One. So we're thrilled with having those opportunities so you can tune into our program during the week. And then of course don't forget that our own website has every show that we do and then other shows we do in our network. And of course you can look that up. It's jennymwellness.com, and Jenny's with a G. And then also Papa has a great archive, for our shows. And it's great because then you can watch them at your convenience, of course, YouTube and all this stuff. So we want to thank everyone that does that and watches the show and all the positive comments. If you'd like to send comments to me personally, and this is my private email, so don't go put it up on too many sites or on restroom walls or anything at truck stops, because I got enough things to take care of. But it's all lowercase, and it's drralphsmith3@gmail.com. So once again, that's drralphsmith3@gmail.com, and doctor is simply DR. You don't have to spell doctor out. So anyway, welcome back into the show. We talk a lot about different things we do at Jenny Marie Wellness. I give speeches out there that they write me nice checks, which I appreciate. And one of the areas that come up all the time is parenting. And I thought this would be a good time to do one of our shows on parenting and some of the things that we do in these seminars. And the best thing about it is you're going to get a lot of good information, but it's free, and free is good. So let's talk a little bit about parenting. As a dad of a 43-year-old, a 37-year-old, and a 26-year-old, yeah, we spaced them out for each decade. I've gotten, let's say, a mirror experience would be the wrong way to put it. I got quite an exposure raising kids. And then when you see these kids then grow up and have children of their own, and nothing's funnier when Linda and I will be sitting there at a Thanksgiving or a Christmas party, and you're watching your own kids shaking their fingers, trying to be firm and authoritarian, and they used to give us crap about that when we were raising them, and yet they repeat the same thing, and hopefully they have a good income as we had. Parenting is one of the thankless jobs you'll ever have, but it's the job that you'll be most grateful for. There's nothing to explain that feeling when you raise, and I'm not bragging here, so don't take it the wrong way, but when you raise 6 children that have 6 degrees among all of them. And my son's recently picked up a master's in business administration. But it's just wonderful. And why is it wonderful? It's not that I push education. You think I would with all the education that I've managed to garner in my 65 plus years. But it was my wife, Linda, who even with the grandkids continues to stress how important education is. Back in the day when Linda and I both graduated from La Mirada High School in 1972, having a high school diploma is really all you needed. You could go and get different jobs, and if it was a technical job that you needed to get, you'd have to get additional education. But it wasn't a big deal. Don't mean to sound sexist, but a lot of the women back in those days, they went to college because it was likely they'd meet a mate in college that would go on and be successful, let alone build their own careers, where your likelihood of snaring somebody in high school and having all that work out is much more limited. Nowadays, that doesn't apply. Women especially have decided they want to build careers because they don't want to have to depend on anybody but themselves. And if they find a husband that does well financially, or they find a husband that makes great money, then that's all for the better. That gets into the second house and changing your cars every 2 years. All those things are wonderful if you judge your life on getting a good partner, making good money, having that beautiful home, and getting a new car every 2 years. That's great. But you know something? That's the easiest part. And you might say to yourself, Dr. Ralph, what are you talking about? What do you mean that's the easiest part? You got to go to school, you got to get a career, you got to please a boss, you got to share a car sometimes because your wife has a career, your significant other has a career. What do you mean that doesn't? Because the most important thing you'll ever do in your life is to be a good, loving parent. When the Lord blesses you with children, no matter how many you have, as long as it's responsible, that you can afford them, and folks got to think about that. These kids they have, and I'll have a kid, well, this, and then they don't have the money to support them, that just creates hardship. You want to give those kids a good life. So if you can only afford to have one kid, you have one kid. If you can have 6, great. It all comes down to your time and to your money and the love that is so deep between your partner and yourself. Because the last thing you want these kids to do is to grow up with a broken home and have stepmoms and stepdads. It happens. And a lot of people try real hard to do the best they can. But the way you avoid that is making some good choices up front. So let's say when you have that first child, it's really neat. You deal with, do we want to find out what sex the child is? Is it going to be a boy or a girl? You work on the bassinet. You create that special room there. You have all those little mobiles that spin around so the kids look at it and they get their coordination set. It's a wonderful experience. Then you have number 2. Now, number 2 is just exciting, but you learn lessons from the first child you have, and you apply those on number 2 child. Now, it always cracks me up that there's a commercial there, and I probably won't commercialize it here for you, but I think you'll know the one I'm talking about, where they've got this little baby tub, and they have it on the counter, and they're trying to wash the baby in that, and they're trying to be careful that they catch every part of it because they don't want to do it wrong. And then all of a sudden they've taken a picture because it's cute, and the dad drops the cell phone into the tub. And they get all excited and upset. Well, then they flash forward and they have child 2. And there the dad, who is a big guy like me, would be taking a shower in there, and Mama Bear would be bringing him these kids so they could go ahead and shower with dad and then get him in and get him out and get him towel. And the funny part about the commercial at the very end, he'll say to the wife, well, when is it your turn? And she makes the comment, you can wish for it, or yeah, right. It's a cute commercial, but it does give you a little bit of a piece of what it takes to be a parent. And I'm going to walk you through this in the rather short show that we have to do it. First of all, you've got to establish who's going to be the disciplined parent and who's going to be the easy-go parent. It's kind of like a good cop, bad cop type of thing. Because as these kids get older, they will play you against your spouse, and then you're sitting there having arguments about what happened. Solve that problem. Take a leadership role in how the children are going to be raised, agree on the priorities and the accountability and all those type of things, and then switch that job with your significant other about every 6 months. And you'll confuse the heck out of those kids to where they won't be playing you and your significant other against each other. It's a good tip. Use it. As your child gets older, and it doesn't matter whether it's the first child, second child, or third child, they're going to start interfacing with society as we know it. When we work or we do things or we go to church and all these things, we interface with a lot of different people. If you think about all the people you touch in that type of environment, it's amazing how many people you touch. Some become friends, some may become enemies, and some you may not remember their name come Christmas. But the point is you interface with a lot of different people. Well, the kids have the same situation. When they go to school, that thing of going to kindergarten, and this, of course, they can go to preschool and all that, but going to kindergarten, it's a big deal. It's not only putting the kid on a bus that he rides to school or she rides to school, but they get in that classroom, and their world is then compressed with 28 or 25 other kids their age. Some of them pull hair, they chew gum, they knock kids down, and other kids become more serious, and they have 1 or 2 special friends. And this is their first attempt to interfold, in other words, get involved with life itself and have friendships. And as they get older, that only intensifies. Then playing sports becomes part of it. And thank God now that women have the right to play all the sports. When I played sports at Lombardo High, the gals had one sport they could play. It was bobby softball. Boy, today the world has changed, and thank God it has. They're playing all the sports. Football's a little tough every once in a while, but a lot of these other sports they're playing. And maybe we'll reach a day when we can do co-ed sports, which would be awfully nice. I don't know if I'll live long enough to see it, but it would be nice. But the point I'm trying to make is, as they get into those mature relationships, they start going through puberty. Puberty hits children from ages 11 to 14. Women or girls tend to do it a little earlier than the guys. But all of a sudden, all those things that didn't matter, they start mattering. And as kids prepare to date, as kids prepare to keep their parents at school and be timely and not be seen with their folks, it's an adjustment you've got to make. But if you raise these kids right, hopefully they won't make major mistakes like driving when they're drinking, doing drugs, doing all these different things. You get one shot at this, and you want to do it when they're early in their life. And then finally, when they graduate from high school and college, you think to yourself, it's over. Man, 18 years of this, and you got 2 more coming right behind them. Boy, what will life be when they're finally all done? Well, first of all, let me break the news to you as carefully as I can. You're never done. What happens when your kids get older, when they go to college, or they get past that age 18? The old rules of advise and consent are out the window. All you can do is advise. Now, parents try to sometimes to keep control by using the dinero, or the money, and say, well, if you're going to go to college and I'm going to pay for it, or you're going to do this is what you got to do, and they dole out that money. That is a waste of time, because then you're teaching them that money is more important than living a good life and being good and being rewarded. So you've got to look at all these things and say to yourself as you go through the cycle of life, how many children can you really afford? Can you give them the amount of time that's necessary? Can you raise that child and be able to give that child the attention individually they need? There's going to be competition between the first child, the middle child, and the oldest child. We had 3 kids ourselves. Fortunately, we spaced them enough years that it wasn't as much of a conflict as a lot of people who bump those kids out every 2 years. But the point I'm trying to make is it creates a little competition. You've got to make every one of those children be special. Every one of those children you have, even though they come from the same mom and dad maybe, they have different likes and dislikes. Some like sports, some like arts, some like doing their technology. There's so many things that draw the attention of these kids. Let them be themselves. Now, if you find yourself in the uncomfortable position of being a step-parent, and boy, that's tough. Blended families have a 70% divorce rate. And the reason why that divorce rate is so high, it's generally not the relationships between the adults, but it's basically absorbing someone else's children into it, absorbing their accountabilities and their rules, having your own rules, and then a lot of people conflict even more by having more children. So you got children from mom, you got children from dad in previous relationships, and then you have the ones together, and the kids from both of those ends are saying, well, this isn't fair. You're showing more attention to the babies and the kids that you guys had, and you care more about them. Oh my gosh, what a mess. And that's the reason why you tend to have a problem with that rule of blended families. We'll do a separate show on that someday. But the separate families, blended families, it can work as long as everybody has the same goals, the same accountabilities, and you get them to work together. A lot of times their ages are close together. So if for some reason you find yourself into a second relationship, and this could either be a marriage or a committed relationship, boy, you better have a long talk, especially if kids come into the equation. And then the worst thing of all you got to deal with, the bio dad or the bio mom still being in the picture. And if that's not bad enough, then you got the bio dad or bio mom, they marry again, and then you have another influence. And before you know it, you've got 6 different adults involved with the life of one child. And you want to know why these kids grow up confused and not knowing what to do? Well, they go out and get attention. How they get attention? By what they used to do when they were in kindergarten. They get in trouble, and they don't care, because when they get in trouble, they get your attention. It's all about attention and communication. Well, I'm going to give you a gift after this break of one system you can use. It's an award-winning system. We developed this back in the days when we did our radio shows back in Boise on KBOI back in the 90s. And it has been incredible how successful this has been. We used to sell the kits. Now we give them away when we do our seminars. But I'm going to talk to you about that, and you can actually learn this while you watch this TV show. And if the kids are watching, that's even better. And then if you want the criteria or the parameters of how to make it work, you just give me a call. You can find me in a Google search, and I'll send you the basic information. We don't sell the kits anymore because I've gotten too tired putting those kits together. Hey, we'll be right back after this break. Well, welcome back from that short break. We appreciate the fact that hopefully you're still tuned in. And it's what they refer to in the television business and the radio business is the hook. And what the hook means is to get your viewers or your listeners to come back to the program because you dangle something out to them that they're going to learn. And I did the same thing to you when I talked about one of the secrets of raising children. And I'm going to share this with you right now. Again, I want to remind you that if you need more information on this particular thing, I don't think we have it on our website anymore, but you go ahead and send me an email, which is drralphsmith3@gmail.com. You go to our website, Ginny M Wellness, Ginny with a G.com, and there's a little box there that they've created that contact us, and I'd be more than happy to send you some information on how you do this system. So here we go. Back in about 1998, we started a show called Northwest Tonight. And my good buddy Greg Haskis was on it, Dr. Haskis was on it, I was on it. We did a lot of politics, we did a lot of sports. But one of the things we also did is we started bringing in some of our patients from our different practices and talk about their life experiences. A lot of time they wouldn't mention their name. Of course, in radio, you don't have to worry about being seen. Where television, that's a little bit more difficult, obviously, because we don't wear disguises. It is what it is. But I'll tell you what, I created a system called Rewards Plus Children. And literally it was created as a reward plus, it had a plus signal on it, or sign on it, it said children. And what it was built on was on the basis that we as parents, and I don't care if you're rich, you're poor, you're black, white, red, yellow, it doesn't matter. The whole situation, it doesn't matter. You know what, we all come from different backgrounds, I guess is my point. But I finally created a system that would work regardless of what kind of parenting you had. And if you would follow some basic rules. And I'm about to share that with you. When we first did this particular system, we actually did it on KFI in the mid-90s. And KFI covered the entire west coast of the United States. And then KBOI used to do the same thing. The signals changed a little bit now. But you used to talk to people from San Diego up to 100 miles north in Canada. And every night from 10 o'clock at night Mountain Time to midnight, we do this show. So anyway, we introduced this Rewards Plus kit, and we had over 22,000 people that wanted them. In fact, took me forever to make these things. I got some high school kids that I was helping with, and it finally got to be too much. And it really wasn't a money maker because by the time you got all the parts in the kit, and then you paid the kids to do it, it just ended up being a lot of anguish. So we used to do it as seminars and then pass out information on it. So I'm going to give that to you right now. The Rewards Plus Kids section of this is based for kids ages 6 to 16. That age group is important because as your children evolve in their different levels of maturity, how you approach that maturity is different. For example, you don't treat a 16-year-old like you would a 6-year-old. So you actually cater it. But it's all built on the presence of this. You need to have a presence in raising kids where your number one focus is catching them doing something right. Let me say that again. Catch your children doing something right and rewarding them. I used to coach t-ball because all of my kids generally played sports, and even Hillary, when she was a little girl, she used to play sports. The only problem is she'd be out in the outfield talking to her friend who played center field, and the balls get hit out there, they wouldn't even notice it because they were too busy, and I can prove that. Busy yakking. But the thing is, what you do is you start catching your kids doing something right. And I could always tell the difference. You know, when I would hug these t-ballers, because I'm a real physical hugging guy, and back in those days that didn't bother people. Nowadays, I guess you got to be careful. But I used to really like doing that because I looked at those children as being an extension of myself. And the sad part was these t-ballers were ages like 5, 6, maybe 7 years old if they didn't develop enough in baseball. And I would hug them, and I would have the people who just hugged me briefly. I'd have the people that hugged me tightly, like they would never let go. And then I had the others that looked me straight in the eye, give me my hug, and then move on. I later found out with a little research that out of that team of 12 players I had, only two, and this is back in the 90s, it's probably worse now, but only 2 out of the 12 were with their same bio parents. I don't believe this stuff, or this is my real dad or real mom. There's bio parents, and they take care of you from the day you're born to the day you leave the house. And then there's basically the step-parents. But the real reality is, if you're raising kids, whether you're a step-parent or you're a bio-parent, you're dad, you're mom. You're the one taking care of them when they're basically are sick and they're throwing up in the toilet. You're the one there that when the kid comes home and he's been drinking and he sneaks in, and you're the one waiting for him or her. You're the one that when they get in trouble, if you've done your job right, they call you first. You don't have to get a call from a police officer. And the way you build all this is you build it on the basis that when they're young as 6 years old, to up to the time they're 16, of catching them doing something right and rewarding them. You might say, well, Dr. Ralph, how do you do that? It's just hard. I've got kids, I've got my careers, I've got all these things. It's a simple formula, and now you're going to find out about it. Every child should have chores. Now, whether you give them allowances or not, that's up to each family unit. I believe in allowances. I also believe you never hit a kid. I've never hit any of my kids because I just don't believe in it. I think that physical violence doesn't teach you anything except you're bigger than they are. And I don't want that carried on when they get older. So I've never struck my children in my entire life of raising children. And I've been around married for 46 years. But I always made a special effort that every time I've caught them doing something wrong, and I had to discipline them, again, no spanks, but go to your room, or whatever the case might be. And since my kids watch these shows, I'm not going to give you all my secrets. But the bottom line is that that's how I punish them. And I would have a case where, and especially where in puberty, where it got to be more difficult. So I thought to myself, what can I do to not only help my family, but also to help my patients who I would see at that time with raising kids. And the whole premise came about catching them doing something right. So here's how it works. First of all, you create a list for your kids based on their ability, maturity, and their capacity to do simple chores. And you spread them out equally. They should be there next to mom or dad washing dishes or rinsing them off, put them in the dishwasher. They should be helping with food preparation. They should be there, clearing the table. They should be there if the leaves need to be raked. They've got a rake that they can use. They do all these things as errands. And as far as that errands is due, the errand list, and I'm pronouncing it a little weird because I want you to understand, that's expected. That's what they get their allowance from, or a nice thank you. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is when your kids do something beyond the normal, beyond errands, beyond running errands for you or doing any of those type of things, extra. So what you do is you make a list. And if you're blessed enough to have your children be within 2 to 4 years within each other, then you only have to make one list. If it's different age groups, you got to make more than one. But you make a list of all the things that you'd like the kids to do that's beyond what they do to earn their allowance. And then on that list, you go ahead and you make all those items up and you tell them, look, if you do these things by yourself, you need to come and see me, and then I will verify it, and I'm going to give you a coupon. And you get those coupons like you see for ride tickets and stuff. You get the coupons, and then they add up these coupons. The more they do on the list, the more coupons they make. And then what you see happen is then they want to basically cash them in. So then this is the element where you teach them to save money, is you create different levels, and I'll give you examples. Like, for example, if you had 10 coupons, you can have a friend over. If you have 20 coupons, you can take a friend out to dinner. And, of course, the folks pay for all this stuff. If you have 30 coupons, you can have a big sleepover where you have, all your friends come. And you go on and on until you get to 100. And when you get to 100, that's usually going to an amusement park for your child and a friend, because you want them to do things together. The reason why you break it up, it teaches kids to put value on the things they do. Not only the fact that mom and dad catch me doing things right and I got these coupons, but more importantly, as they keep going different levels, they got to decide, maybe I want to spend 10 right now to have my friend come over. But if I wait and I get 40 or 50, I can have my friends come over and a sleepover. Gosh, I don't know what's best. And if I really want to have some fun, I'll just keep them until I can go to Wild Waves or go to some type of amusement park. And I know this costs parents money, but to watch your kids go through the process of trying to do things to impress you and that you catch them doing right, getting those tickets, saving up those tickets, and then cashing them in. Doesn't that sound a lot like life? When you grow up and you make money, and the more money you make, the more options you have. So you're teaching them that you want to catch them doing something right. You give them a lot of praise. You give them the coupons, and then you're teaching them how to be an adult by picking the level that they do. It's relatively inexpensive to do. But even good old Dr. Ralph thought he had this all figured out. And then I got a call once from San Diego, California on our show. He said, Dr. Ralph, we tried your system. It really worked great. But the problem we have is that when we give the tickets, we find that one kid in our family normally ends up with a lot more tickets than the other kids. And then when they don't get as much tickets, they just give up. How do you solve that problem? And I said, well, what do you mean they get more tickets? You gave them the list. You gave them the things they could do. You changed the list each month. How could one other child be able to do? Is it you have an attitude problem with the other ones? Do they not believe in it? And in this case, it was a woman caller. And she said, no, doc. She said, they all have interest in it. But at the very end, when it goes to cashing tickets in, they just seems like one always ends up with it all. And I thought about that all the way home. I drove in my car and I thought about that. And then I figured it out. And so when I got back on the show the next night, I said to that lady that called me from San Diego or whatever, and for all you other parents that listen, I figured out what was happening. You need to sign those tickets because either the kids will trade them off and give it to their siblings, or they'll actually steal them, or whatever the case might be. But if you sign them out and you put their name on it, and then when they go to cash it in, you only take tickets that have their name on it, it's a lot better. And then you need to destroy those tickets. Well, that mother called me back on the show 3 months later on the radio show and said, that solved it. This has been a blast. She said, I only wish I could get my husband on that system. Said, sorry, if you're married to someone under 16, you got a problem. But the whole point of it is, in raising children, is to enjoy the experience, be flexible, realize that you're raising the future of this country, not just your own kid, and you're catching them doing something right. And what will happen is, as they grow up and have children, you'll see them use the same type of system. Children need to be rewarded. And if you're the type of parent, and I had kids, again, playing t-ball for me, and I would give them a hug and they'd cringe or they'd get real rigid. Well, it's not that they thought there was something wrong with Dr. Ralph as coach, but they were just afraid they were going to get in trouble. And if a child is constantly worried about getting in trouble, how in the heck would you expect them to enjoy life and feel good about what they do? Because when you get right down to it, if a kid is looking for attention and you're rewarding that kid because of great grades or earning a lot of tickets or taking care of their brother or sisters, whatever the case, they're getting attention, but it's positive attention. And positive attention is a much better tool to use than giving them attention because they're in trouble. When I've worked with people who've had addiction issues and young kids that are driving and they're getting DUIs and the whole works, I said to them, well, what about your parents? And the number one response I'd get is they don't care about me. They don't have time for me. So what difference does it make? They've already given up at life at 17, 18, 19 years of age, which is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So you could turn this around. This is nothing you delegate off. This is nothing that you try to get, grandpa or grandma to help with. This is something you take control of. And you can be able to raise these children. You can go ahead and have, family council meetings, which pick one night a week where you guys get together as a family and talk about what the family's going to be doing this coming week, what trips are coming up, vacations, talk about what you like to do for vacation, talk about your monthly trip. Make the kids grow up with you as far as being responsible. Teach them how important it is to make a meal and being there to help mom. And if mom cooked the meal and sister was helping her, then they sit down and watch TV while you and your brother or your other sister or whatever, they clean the table off and wash those dishes. And since most people have dishwashers, it's not as hard as it used to be like in the days when I grew up. So the point I'm trying to make is, if you want to be a good parent, you'll have your ultimate grade when these kids grow up and have children of their own. That'll be your ultimate grade. But don't wait that long. Set the example now. And one other little tidbit I'll get you, and then I'll say goodbye before I give you this tidbit. If you're having an argument with your significant other, never do it in front of children. Never do it in front of children. And if the walls are so thin that you can't do it in the master bedroom or for whatever reason you can't wait till the kids go to bed and have that discussion, then go get in the car and go for a drive and resolve the issue. No Band-Aids, solutions. Because the number one things that make kids nervous is if they think their parents are going to get divorced. Because the number one thing for kids is stability. Knowing that they're going to have a roof over their head, they're going to have a good meal to put in their belly, and they're going to have some fun. Every kid desires that. And there's a lot of kids out there that haven't got that, and believe me, they hear about it. So do the right thing. The conception part is fun, but the raising the children is much more beneficial. Thank you for tuning into our program. I hope you check out our programs on our website, and hopefully you'll enjoy it and learn a few things from it. And we'll be coming back to you here shortly with another couple of shows as we try to complete Season 3 of Life's Journey with Dr. Ralph Smith. Enjoy yourself, and God bless you.